And we are live. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Holy Crap, the Vlogcast. Vlogcast that comes from a skeptical point of view to answer some of the questions of why. This Vlogcast started as a combination of spice and spite and the straight. Yeah, spice, because the spice is life. The spice transforms people and turns their eyes this gorgeous color of blue.
The spice must flow.
Yeah, I got other things that are going to flow tonight. Part of this is to follow. No, don't, not yet. You know what? I don't care. The mood is wrong. All right, the mood is wrong now. Hi, it's us. You know who the hell we are.
Oh God, dude!
But for those of you that don't know who we are, that's Dalan. Hi, Dalan.
Evening.
Hi, Bridget.
Hi.
Hi, Unrenode Tech.
What's up, homie?
Screw y'all. I don't care what the hell is going on. You know what? Can we just get a freaking do-over at this point?
What do you guys think about the next 5 minutes?
That was wonder. That would have sounded so much better if your network hadn't gone to crap for a second there. Or maybe it's mine. Okay. I don't know whose network is screwing up, but it could be mine, could be yours. I don't know.
I don't know. It seems to have passed up.
Okay, then. We're all good? We're all here? Fine. You know what? That's fine. Good. So, hi. Yeah, we're running a little bit late because we're kind of missing people, but oh well, such is life. I was going to put the show invitation out to pretty much all the podcasters and just say, hey, it's freaking late at night. Anybody want to join us? Just because I actually think I'm going to do that next week. I was just telling the guys. So welcome to the show. Hi, we're going to talk about stuff because we kind of do. Anyway, that's basically what we do.
The podcast that talks about stuff.
That's
unlike all the other ones.
Okay,
wow.
Be very, very careful there. You're edging very close to something.
Yes, I know. And for those of you that
and it's not porn.
Well, no, actually, there is a podcast by one of the I almost want to say pod founding people because, well, she's not. I really can't call her a father. Christina Ellis, and she has a podcast called Talking About Stuff.
Oh, okay, cool. I don't listen to a lot of podcasts, so if I inadvertently treaded on somebody, I formally apologize. I retract my statement. I didn't realize it was trademarked to say weird shit that pops up in the top of my head.
It's okay. Ms. Ellis is probably the last person you have to worry about. Now, her friend Scott Sigler, on the other hand, might end up killing you in his next novel. Because he's like that.
Well, if he's going to kill me, please understand that I have an affection for sharp-bladed, edged weapons because you don't have to reload them.
3 words, Tech. Galactic Football League. Draw your own conclusions.
No. We've
I
discussed
was a front linesman on the offensive line in high school.
If there's one thing I know about
that ain't gonna help you.
Dalan,
I'm just saying.
If there's one thing I know about him, he qualifies as offensive, so it's fine.
I may die, but at least it'll be epic.
So for those of you that are watching live, first off, sorry, I know this is not our usual. It's going to be what it's going to be, man. It's the end of summer.
We may get more views this way.
We just might. We will see. But in the meanwhile, let me just really quickly thank you for being part of the show. And I do see Aubrey taking advantage of the chat feature. Thank you very much. I do see you over there. If you are watching live and you want to go ahead and chat us up, feel free while we're doing this. You can get us over here while we're live over on YouTube. Plus, if you join us over on the Discord server, I've got that up and running. You can always chat us over there. Can't speak to us directly, but maybe one of these days I'll investigate whether or not I can actually have the audio running at the same time. I'm not going to do that while we're live doing this because if I break something audio-wise, that's probably going to be a bad day. So
I break the camera all the time with my face.
It's not the camera that I'm worried about. It's locking up the entire audio server. That would be a problem.
Yes.
Then you couldn't hear anybody.
Well, worse than that, it would lock up the entire system. And when Linux locks up, that's a bad day.
The sound of silence.
Yes, and so that we don't get ourselves a DMCA hit or whatever the hell it is these days. Which, by
I
the
can
way,
do it further off key if you'd like.
I
That way
don't.
we don't get hit.
No.
That used to be the YouTube thing. They used to actually do that. People would like shift the audio in one direction or the other, or speed it up or slow it down or whatever.
Yeah, they did. Anyway, we're gonna go ahead and get everything rolling over here. So let me start you off with your 5-minute freestyle because for those of you that don't already have a drink, get one because it's worthwhile. And I will admit, this is one of those few opportunities where I actually wrote stuff down, and I'm going to be almost exclusively talking through basically a list for a change. With 5 minutes on the clock, your 5-minute freestyle starts right now. This week we have lost something, although we know exactly where we put it. Sort of. For those of you that didn't pay attention to the news, at least the nicer news, sort of, the Cassini-Huygens probe is now no more. It was an amazing piece of engineering. Let me give you the facts about it. Cassini-Huygens, its origins go back to 1982 when it was proposed. 1982. It didn't launch until October of 1997, and it only just finally came to rest as trace elements in the atmosphere of Saturn. Here are the facts and the details. It was a joint mission between NASA, the European Space Agency, and the Italian Space Agency. When all is said and done, it lasted 19 years, 335 days, almost 20 years old from the time that it launched. And like I said, its origination point as a concept goes back to 82. I wasn't even in high school at that point. For the rest of you that might be younger than that, shut up. I know. It was named for the Italian-French astronomer Cassini. Giovanni Domenico Cassini discovered Saturn's ring divisions and 4 of its satellites. Huygens was named for the Dutch astronomer, mathematician, and physicist, the discoverer of the moon Titan. At launch, it had a total power output of 885 watts. At its demise, it was putting out about 663. The power supply in my computer outpowers and outperforms that. And the lander on Titan landed July 2005. Some of the onboard tech that goes along with this, and reminding you, this launched in 1997, meaning all of the items I'm about to list for you were state-of-the-art in 1997. The Cassini Plasma Spectrometer, the Cosmic Dust Analyzer, the Composite Infrared Spectrometer, Ion and Neutral Mass Spectrometer, Imaging Science Subsystem, Dual Technique Magnetometer, Magnaspheric Imaging Instrument, Radio and Plasma Wave Science Instrument, Radio Science Subsystem, Ultraviolet Imaging Spectrograph, Visible and Infrared Mapping Spectrometer. Oh yeah, and one other item, radar. And I'm singling that one out because specifically, radar is something that we just take for granted now. And it was bleeding edge technology in the 40s. Think about that. 50 years before this took off, radar that we don't even think about anymore was bleeding edge technology. And the rest of the stuff that I just read off for you, you could have easily just said, wait a minute, wasn't one of those in like a sensor palette on Star Trek Next Generation? As a matter of fact, yes, one of them was. Do you know which one it was? None of them, because they were all items that were on the probe. I didn't make up any of that. One of the things that it identified and found was something that we would have never been able to see from here. The hexagonal northern storm. And we talked about this not too very long ago. Dalan and I, as a matter of fact, even just last night, a hexagonally shaped storm on the North Pole. Doesn't make any sense, but yet there it is. We would have never seen it. It cost $3.26 billion over its lifetime from launch. It cost $163 million per year. How much is that for the United States? Going by fiscal year 2016, $188 billion spent in that fiscal year for the military budget. How much would this have cost? 0.000867021%. For those of you that don't speak those big numbers, that is almost 9/10,000ths of 1% of the military budget. Now, my time is already up, but I still got one extra piece that I want to throw at you. What did we gain with the amount of money that we spent on this collectively as a world? 27 nations participated in this. It has sent us back 635 gigabytes of scientific data, 6 new moons discovered and named, 162 targeted flybys of Saturn's moons, 4.9 billion miles, 7.9 billion kilometers traveled, nearly 4,000 science papers published, over 453,000 images after almost 300 orbits. And we just dumped it to become trace elements in Saturn's atmosphere because we didn't want to accidentally crash it onto a planetoid that might host life. Might. So, Cassini-Huygens, on behalf of all of us who will probably never read any of those damn papers, thank you for doing it right and for showing that even though it's kind of overly dramatic, the prime directive of not interfering in other cultures means a hell of a lot to us here and not just in the future. To Cassini.
Skull.
This is episode 179 on the docket, Your Honor. Cruz'n for a Bruisin. Oh my gosh. We have got stuff that happened in the... Yes!
Midget porn!
Don't do that. I got to turn down your microphone again because your gain is way high for the rest of it.
No, actually, I readjusted. Mine's a directional boom pickup, and before it was off center, and now it's on center. So if you upped it, you got it down it. You hear that, kids? Remember, with uppers come downers.
I don't want to talk about your members. So this past week, we heard that there were some interesting items that came out. Apparently, somebody's Twitter account got them into trouble again, and something that really pissed me off was that the Vatican recalled somebody from Washington. Their whatever the title is, I don't really much care. After it was discovered that there was possibly information that would have potentially implicated in a pedophilia picture, maybe thing in Washington. So instead of bringing somebody in for prosecution, they sent him back to Vatican. And they're maybe going to go ahead and they're maybe going to face charges out there, which I don't know how that's going to work. Because traditionally, what's the word I'm looking for? It doesn't.
All right.
Yeah, and you know, we really need to hook up generators to the graves of Mr. Dunning and Mr. Kruger. Because every time one of these Catholic-related, child sex-related incidents pops up, the cognitive dissonance that radiates from the Catholic populace should have these two individuals spinning in their graves fast enough to power the entire country in which they are buried. I'm sorry, I don't really know where they're from, but whatever country they're in, they could probably power it from turning over in their graves so much as of late.
That could be, but I don't think Dunning and Kruger are the ones that you're looking for in this one.
Oh, Dunning-Kruger syndrome, cognitive dissonance.
Yeah, they're the ones that say, you don't know that topic nearly as well as you think you do. Which I think may be one of those situations right now where...
well, then I just sent a couple of votes their way now, didn't I?
Yes, apparently you would
Damn
have.
It's basically people who are stupid don't know they're stupid.
I hear a voice from the void. Good morning, Joseph.
That's kind of what I said. That's kind of what I said. They're just turning a blind eye and just, you know, they refuse to believe it.
I think that's called willful ignorance, but that's you know what? We'll dabble on that afterwards. But in any case, Heretic Woman may still be on her trip because I may have woken her up because I didn't know if she was back or not. So I figured, screw it, I'll just ping her anyway. Nothing. Joey, I don't know. Could be that he's asleep, but we'll it's fine. It's fine. Don't worry about it. It's fine. But since Heretic Woman is not here, a real quick update. I unfortunately don't have any new information out of Saudi Arabia on Raif Badawi. As we've said on many an occasion, that's probably going to be, unfortunately, more the norm than not, at least for the time being. So as of tonight's recording, this is now 5 years, 3 months since Raif Badawi was unjustly incarcerated for thought crime. Our hopes and our thoughts are still with you and your family. Our best hopes. So, yeah, I've got the links in the show notes already for what's been going on. Senator Ted Cruz.
Yeah. As soon as you say that, nothing good's coming after it.
No, it's not, because I didn't exactly put this out there for everybody. Oh, and by the way, Stephanie, hi, do see you over there in the live chat. Thank you.
Hey.
Yeah, Senator Ted Cruz, once upon a time, was the Solicitor General of Texas, and had to defend a how can I best put this? A no dildos policy that was instituted in the legislature. That was a law on the books. And before anybody thinks that I'm trying to look for the laughter on this one, no, I can't make shit like that up. It literally was exactly that. You were not allowed to sell dildos or other sexually explicit devices. I believe the term was obscene.
And I think there's still a law in the books, at least. Well, I've read it a couple of times. A friend of mine has read it on a stupid laws segment of a show we were doing. You apparently cannot possess more than 6 of these items while you're in the state of Texas.
Yeah, you know, that just means a bad dragon is just not going to be having a sales force out in Texas.
Well,
sadly.
I think we're still trying to get our mutual friend. I think, okay, either Tech Tiger lives there and needs to get out, or he was making travel plans and decided not to.
It could be.
Hey, there's a reason he has the title of resident toy expert.
Yeah, that's true. And for those of you that are wondering, Bad Dragon, don't go looking that up at work. Seriously, don't go looking that up at work.
Unless you hate your job and really, really, really want to get out of it really, really, really fast, and you don't care what it does to your career.
No. Okay, all right. There is the big caveat right there. If you don't want to work again for a while, okay.
Especially in that field of whatever it is that you're doing.
Holy crap, the vlogcast does not in any way endorse the opportunity of going ahead and screwing over your boss's employment by going looking for bad dragon stuff at work. There, that's good. Okay, fine. Oh, God. Next time, somebody remind me to put on the echo so it actually sounds official. Okay, thanks. All right, I appreciate that. Keep forgetting I got that over there. Anyway,
let's just put it this way. Ted Cruz comes from a kind of background where they say that they're highly moral, and yet they have very high divorce rates, high instances of statistics that demonstrate the affinity for gay porn.
Again, you're overblowing the system. Please don't yell.
He's an evangelical Christian, which means there's a really high rate, high possibility that this guy, he was the one who did it. But if what he says is true, that there's a whole bunch of people on his staff that have access to that particular account, you never know. Might have been just some guy in there fooling around.
Yeah, to basically put onto the record as far as to what's being happened over here. Apparently, Ted Cruz, Senator Ted Cruz, had some likes on his personal Twitter account, again, for various pieces of adult entertainment, porn. Let's just call it what it is porn. Now, we're not going to, in any way, shape, or form, slut shame anyone for saying that they enjoy porn. I will be the first to admit it on this panel. I like porn. I like some porn that would be very distressing to some people. The
internet is for porn. Thank you, Avenue Q.
Yeah.
I played the music video for my son. He thought it was hilarious.
Yeah, well, it is. It is. And to go along with that, VHS was also made for porn.
Oh, indeed. Yes, it was, because Betamax refused to sell to them.
Yeah. So we got inferior technology, but that's a whole other thing for later. That's part of the reason why Polaroid actually had the one-step camera. It had nothing to do with that. Don't worry about it. That's another thing for another day.
That would be an interesting story had it been, though.
It would have been.
Yeah.
It very much would have been. But so apparently his Twitter account, according to him, is accessible by several people. And his explanation for why porn on his personal account, again, his personal account, this is important, had likes to various things that were of an adult nature, was, quote, it was a staffing issue and it was inadvertent. It was a mistake. It was not a deliberate action. His personal Twitter account, not his professional senatorial account. Now, here's the problem. I'm calling bullshit. I'm calling big time bullshit. Bullshit. Because I think he's trying to save face, because he is, as was stated, big time evangelical who says, yeah, you want to be following the good book, even if it does increase teenage pregnancy and STI rates, and we shut down places like Planned Parenthood and other reproductive rights organizations. And is everybody getting this in the back row over there? Thank you. So, you know, I don't know what we can say about that, except to add to it, because I put it in there. To add to it, U.S. officials found evidence implicating a Vatican diplomat. Yes, that's what they're calling him these days. Diplomat in a child pornography case, leading officials in Rome to recall the priest so that they can face charges at the Vatican. Which means unfortunately, we have another one of these situations of diplomatic immunity because these guys were basically given a free pass to just walk across the tarmac to their own airplane and shoo. If this was anyone, virtually anyone else, there would have been a 3 a.m. raid and guns drawn, lights strapped to the end of them, and it would have been another situation like what was that kid's name? Elian Gonzalez. You guys remember those scenes, right? Those pictures? Yeah, that early morning raid where everybody was all scared. A completely different outcome, but the same kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got bunches of people who are saying, do as I say, not as I do, because, well, they can, even though it goes completely against human nature, because sex is a thing in human nature, whether we like it or not. And as a species, we like sex. If it wasn't for sex, I wouldn't be here. You wouldn't be here today. Except for a very, 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 well, there's a handful of people otherwise. There's a very small contingent. Well, I mean, there is IV. What the hell is it? IVR?
IVF.
IVF. Thank you. See, I know my letters.
So there's going to be a whole lot of people in the future that aren't going to be here because of me.
Okay, now you're starting to get me into my brain's starting to deal with the whole temporal mechanics kind of thing, and I don't like that. Don't hurt me this early in the morning.
Actually, I'm worried more if he's got some biological weapon plant or something.
I don't
know. Fucking?
Well,
I will take over the world.
That's great. So there we go. The first F-bomb of the night goes to the Frank. Thanks.
Oh, always, no?
No, not always. Anyway.
I should change my name to F-bomb, maybe.
Don't need that. So anyway, we've got people...
F-bomb.
Welcome to Holy Crap, Joseph Schomburg, resident F-bomb.
There's your tagline if you ever use your camera again.
That's just great. Now you got me thinking about okay, tangential. The nude bomb.
Tangential. It was just
mine. What I was thinking of, the nude bomb.
Oh God, that thing.
Do I need to take off my shirt?
No.
I can do it. Oh, yeah.
Yes. See, just like with everything else in science, just because you can doesn't mean
you should.
Yeah, the internet's fine the way it is. Thank you.
Well, that's the funny part of it is. So the internet. All right, let me use that for a second, because yes, you can find pretty much everything at the click of a button. A couple of button clicks and you've found everything and anything that you never wanted to see again. Like
if you go to 4chan, you'll see things that you wish you never wanted to see in the first place.
Yeah, like the origination of the bronies. You're welcome.
I have nightmares of 4chan. I visited the random thread. It was a mistake. I was young. I didn't know what I was doing.
You were young, please. Unless your internet connection was started with a crank on the front of it, you weren't that young.
Yeah, I had an IBM PC Junior back in the days.
You were not Neil Young. You were not young and
4800 baud modem.
Come back when you've got an audio coupler hooked up to an Amiga. All right, so here's the thing: we're dealing with people who are intentionally saying, "No, wasn't me. It had to have been somebody else." Don't want to take. Now, to be fair, we don't know how many people actually have access to Ted Cruz's personal Twitter account. I don't know very many people who are non-celebrities who have someone operate their personal Twitter accounts. Now, I know full well there are a number of celebrities who will simply use their own personal Twitter account who are masters of them. And before anybody starts to wonder, is he talking about who I think of? No, I'm thinking specifically of people like Nathan Fillion, who is a fucking master of his Twitter account. Bridget, I heard that. You love him. I heard you. Nathan Fillion, Captain Hammer.
I don't know who that is.
Malcolm Reynolds, Firefly, really?
I have no idea.
Oh, good lord.
Castle for the other people who watch TV.
Yeah, nobody watches Castle. It doesn't matter.
I don't watch a lot of TV. I'm sorry.
It's fine.
He's the he's the detective in Castle, isn't he?
Yeah. Well, he's the author.
Oh, the author. Okay.
Details.
Wait, which one's the detective? Which one's the author?
The woman's the detective.
Okay.
Gentlemen, by my pretty little bonnet, I will end each of you if you don't cut this the hell out. That's a reference. That's a reference for some people. So, Nathan Fillion is a freaking troll master with his Twitter account. Tara Strong, who is the voice of many.
She is an awesome troll.
She is a great troll with her personal Twitter account.
Yeah, she's like what other trolls aspire to be. She is phenomenal.
She, let's see, Mark Hamill, also really, really good.
Mm-hmm.
And I would be completely remiss if I did not specifically mention, very, very specifically mention, Sir Patrick Stewart, who has been wonderful. And along with him, I can't help it but to think of George Takei, who has also been wonderful. With, again, their personal Twitter accounts. Aubrey's also bringing up J.K. Rowling, also done excellently. Neil deGrasse Tyson, also excellent. Mm-hmm. There have been some who have been really good. The sarcastic rover, Bridget.
I love that one. I love that one.
And there was also there's also another one, although it doesn't get much airplay anymore, so to speak, which was the Central Park snake. There was a snake that got loose in the Central Park Zoo, and somebody made a Twitter account for it, and meaning the snake account, talking about how he was trying to get around, and everybody was, scared of him, and he's just trying to be friendly because, you want to be friends with people here in New York, and, all that stuff. That's an account I actually miss.
Well, but okay, if we're going to go that far for making these other accounts, we've got Drunk Hulk.
Okay.
God.
Yes. Oh, God, yes.
Yeah. It's the only time you can actually say God is good and mean it.
This particular God, yes. This particular God is friggin' amazing.
Who else have I seen? And actually, for the time that it was broadcasting, the Twitter account of the probe that landed on the comet. Not necessarily very good at trolling, but still pretty cool.
I believe that was Philae.
Yeah.
But in any case, these are effectively personal accounts. Now, for the people, of course, obviously, these are celebrities, big time celebrity people, but they are still their personal accounts. They operate them as personal accounts because, well, for instance, a good example, Marina Sirtis, who was Counselor Troy on Star Trek Next Generation. She's still very, very active on Twitter, and it's a lot of personal interactions. And it's her. LeVar Burton, also same thing. Still doing stuff. Wonderful. But they're not operating them as, well, shills, basically, for any projects that they're doing. They'll talk about them, but that's not the biggest piece of it all. For instance, Reading Rainbow, trying to bring that back and getting funding and telling everybody what's going to be going on with it, what they're looking to do, and here's all the information from LeVar Burton. Beautiful, brilliant, because that was something that he had a passion for, and he wasn't doing it because he was doing it as a job to make money. He was doing it because he believed in the project, But that wasn't all that he was talking about, not by a long shot. So here we are, a senator in the United States political arena. Admittedly, a big shot because he's been doing it for a while. And believe me, he's got the face for radio. He is not an especially pretty man.
He makes me want to try out for TV.
You would do better.
I know, that's what I'm saying. Like, with a face like his, I've got a shot.
But the problem of it is, we've got him claiming, wasn't me. Wasn't me. Nope. I've got other people who handle my personal Twitter account for me, along with what I do.
Okay.
Yeah, I call bullshit.
Where have we heard this before?
I can tell you exactly where. I can tell you.
Yeah.
Every person that has ever logged into their Twitter or Facebook accounts in the Apple Store.
I'm not even talking Twitter here. I'm talking the trope of it wasn't me, it was somebody on my staff. A personal computer belonging to a high-ranking politician suddenly has child porn on it. Oh, it was a staffing issue. A document that could have been an erotic story about somebody wanting to fuck a child, I'm going back to the 70s here, shows up in a senator's desk. Oh, that must have been a staffing issue. The simple fact of the matter is, Cruz is playing the same old game that every other politician who ever got caught with their hands in the, I'm going to say cookie jar, but we all know that's a euphemism.
Pants. You're looking for the word pants.
Yeah, okay, caught with hands in pants, not necessarily their own. Basically, quoting the song from Shaggy, "It wasn't me." This has been going on since politicians ever decided that they stood for something moral. Because most of them are hypocrites.
Yep.
And
that's the big.
And I also think I think it's not helping anybody's case on any side of the political spectrum these days when 45 is using his personal Twitter account to basically inform America of what he's doing, or using that as his official platform for his opinions and declaring stuff.
I believe the expression you're looking for is being a dick.
I was, for some reason, trying to be nice. Apparently, I'm still too sober.
You're Canadian. It just kind of works that way.
Well, I do have to kind of work on my tolerance a little bit because, well, being deprived for so long will harm that ability to.
Yeah, I know. When you guys do your yearly nasty purge and put it over to the Canada Gooses, did you like miss out on that while you were in the hospital? Because
pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So it'll build up. That's fine.
Yeah, I've got a ways to go, but you know, that shot tonight that helped a little bit. This is what I drank last night during the show.
Chinook.
Let me wrap my hand around this to show you how big it is compared to a typical beer can.
Yeah. Bad brain, bad dragon, bad brain. Shh, it's going to be one of those nights. That's great. Anyway.
Yeah, I will not be liking sites on my personal Twitter account.
Yes. Soon. Well, you know what? I do because I don't care. See, that's the big difference. And I want to kind of run part of this past you, and then we'll deal with the Vatican because fuck them. But that's a whole other thing. I'm probably going to lose some family on some of my accounts over this one. But you know what? I'll go ahead and say it again because that's going to bring us up to 3. Fuck the Vatican. There you go. Fuck the motherfucking Pope. I'm sorry.
Pope. Thank you, Tim.
Yeah. So here's the thing. What if it was a matter of that you said, I don't care? Now, I'm going from that because how many times I don't know about over in over in Europe, so I don't know what you've got to chime in on this one necessarily, Joseph, but over here in the United States in particular, the Republican Party is the group that typically typically over and over has the mantra of less.
The party of no.
Well, that's a different thing.
When Obama was in office, they were the party of no.
Yeah, yes, that may be the case, and you may find the party of no in Japan, but that's a different thing. They're the party that will typically. Some of you, there's like 3 people right now who are just smiling and going, "Wait a minute, yes, I did. You're welcome." The Republican Party, the ones that will typically say, "We want less government oversight."
Yeah, what a bunch of bullshit.
Well, no,
the rules are for you.
But no, they want less government oversight in business affairs.
Specifically, businesses that make them money.
Well, yeah, but when it comes to people's personal lives, now, I don't know if that's the stance of like the GOP. If you were to actually look at it on paper, the charter of the Republican Party, I don't know if it's that, or if it's been as a result of the influence of the religious right over the past several decades on them saying that we have to take this particular moral direction because God.
Well, they both want the same thing. They want to be the dictators of what you think, and well, they just want everything to follow the same pattern it has for the past, I don't know, 2,000 years.
Yeah. But yeah, like turn a blind eye to business, but the bedroom, no,
don't complain.
Yeah, everybody lives in glass houses but works in concrete buildings.
Yeah,
much.
But they've told everyone that their glass house is actually a centuries-old castle, and they believe them.
Yeah, these are the same kind of people that think they could sell, ice to the Eskimos.
Yeah, one would think. And by the way, I almost forgot. Over there on the chat, Trippin, hi, see you over there. I don't know that I had greeted you also, Stephanie. So if I missed you, I'm sorry. I do see you. Hi. The Republican Party. Sorry, quoting from Stephanie. The Republican Party has a charter. Now that must be hypocrisy incarnate.
I think both. I think any political party, in order to be considered one, does have to have some kind of a charter that they're expected to follow. Now, again, I'm spitballing here. Maybe I could go out. Maybe you can go out and find it online somewhere. Maybe it's on 4chan. Tech.
I'm sorry, I was looking at a Pew Research poll. What was your question?
I was just saying, like Stephanie said in the chat that she'd actually be surprised if the GOP actually had a charter. But I think that you kind of need one to register yourself as a political party, don't you?
I don't know. I've never looked into the how to register a political party. We may have studied it in government high school, but I just barely passed that class.
Yeah, but then I then suggested that. I suggested then that maybe the original charter exists as a document somewhere on 4chan.
You're a bad man.
I am very much a bad man.
You're a bad man.
I'm pretty sure we can find that. Don't do that again. Really, don't do that again. I will turn this whole goddamn forum around before I will let you do that again.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Yeah, really. Tell me about it. Anyway, so, all right. So, is there a platform that they should be following? You kind of do. You kind of don't. Because every individual is going to, like with religion, because dogma, everybody will have their own kind of expectation of how you're supposed to implement whatever it is that you're supposed to have as a point of agreement. For instance, you should have a good point of agreement as far as to how economically to make things work better, to bring in more money to spend. For instance, well, as I like to harp on it so much, the military, because that's over 50% of the budget here in the United States at the federal level. Anyway, so let's see. You cut taxes. You reduce taxes, which means you're intentionally taking a pay cut at the federal level from the biggest group that could, well, all right, let me rephrase it because I'm starting to go down the wrong explanation. The largest share of capital, of money, is in a dwindling collection at the highest echelons. They've got the most that they could part with the most and still not be affected. For example, if you're bringing in $1 million a month take-home pay and you are reduced to, let's say, $500,000 a month take-home pay, I don't think that you're really going to notice that $500,000 that's gone, because how much can you really spend in a month? Now, before anybody starts giving me shit about this, just wait. Just wait a second. Versus the people who are scraping by. But you tinker with their numbers a little bit, it could be the difference between affording to live somewhere versus affording to live somewhere but not be able to pay for things like medical insurance, for instance.
So difference between life and death.
Bingo. But yet that's the position that we're in at the moment. Go ahead.
Well, don't forget, the current Republican Party only cares about life and death in the following terms. You can't have abortion because they have to be born, but after that, they're on their own until they're military age. Because
I think all of this is just a smokescreen, anyways. All of their tax cuts and cutting social programs and all that, because I mean, it's like dust compared to how much money is given to like oil company subsidies and things like that. I mean, if they were to eliminate that,
you think it's a smokescreen, really?
Yeah, I do.
No. These are people who understand that if you take the people and you take away the things that make them healthy and happy, you can control them. If you make them ignorant by destroying their education, you can control them. This is all about
power. You can only do that
power.
to a certain point before they'll revolt. And I mean, things are at
no, dude, you do realize that Americans won't revolt until there's stuff that distracts them from the problems is taken away. And nobody's taking away their iPhones. In fact, companies are trying to make sure that the people have their toys because it's distracting.
Now, well, when you compare how much money all these quote-unquote social cuts, the social expenditure, like all the money that's going to like education and and social benefits and all that, the money that they're gonna quote-unquote save by eliminating those it's like dust compared to the money the top earners are, like the laws in place to ensure that the top earners, or the corporations, just continue raking it in. I mean, once you get above a certain level, there's no more rules anymore. I mean, those rules only apply to the lower.
Yeah, and the people who are in charge of protecting those interests spend all kinds of time demonizing things like social programs so that they can get the people on their side when they go to cut them. I mean, look at this whole repeal and replace Obamacare. Now, again, we could have a discussion left, right, up, down, forward, backward about how good or how bad it is, and that's for another time. But the Republicans demonized Obamacare ever since it came up. And you can see by the reaction videos that people have been shooting of when Trump supporters found out that their ACA was actually Obamacare and they just voted to get rid of it. The reaction of some of the people was it was painful to watch. Like I said, these people are distracted. They do nothing but listen to the media that they've been force fed, and they will never revolt.
No, the Republicans. They're okay.
We have people in this country who were interviewed on television, live television. People who need these social net programs. They need welfare. They need they need health insurance. They need the programs to help them find jobs, so that way they don't have to go around making meth in their backyard or any of that other shit. And I'm not exaggerating here. These are people out in the Midwest who are at the lowest rung of the totem pole. Okay. Yes, dear. And there was a news reporter who went out and posted the video. It wasn't just on television, but it was posted the video on YouTube. People were, God, she's mouthy tonight, interviewed and asked, hey, look, your current politicians, your current representatives, okay, here's what they're doing, this is how it's going to affect you. Does that bother you? No, doesn't bother them.
These people,
and then when they point out about the other ones who are trying to put
deciders, they've chosen these people because they're just okay. To put it in a nutshell, these people aren't thinking for themselves. I mean, people who vote Republican either don't think for themselves, or they're people who want people who don't think for themselves to continue not thinking for themselves, or people who like things the way they are. Because
that's not entirely true, because a good portion of Trump's base is not people who don't think for themselves. It's not just the people who maybe are bigots or racist or anything else. There are people who are against the government. They are people who don't like the government in its current incarnation, because Trump went up on stage and said, I'm against big government. Basically, I'm against these problems that we have with our current politicians. So they voted for him on that basis. And there are people who are still backing him on that basis. Okay, not because of their likes of things, but because of their dislikes.
Is that a majority of Trump voters?
That's a decent portion of his voters. It comprises the base.
Okay.
It's not everybody on the base, but it's a significant portion to keep them in power.
Okay. So if we want to describe the movement, we have to, you have to look at the preponderance of, behavior.
Yes. Now, before we get out from this part, because we're getting away from the important piece, just to cover this one off, and I think we may have to come back to this later. The vast majority of people who have voted Republican, who have been reliant on the social assistance programs, are the ones who have been voting against their own self-interests, because they have been led to believe that you shouldn't have these programs because they're bleeding other things dry. Why? Don't know, but that's where so much of it has been. Now, to be fair, there are a number of people who are better educated, far and away better educated, especially in economics, who like the economic platform that the Republicans have put out and tend to agree with those ideas, tax structures and regulations and what can happen to the marketplace. That's a completely different animal, and that's something that we can go into another time. But I want to make sure that we understand the layperson will always be the base, because they are always the biggest group. There are only just so many. There are only just so many chiefs to, whoever is in the party. It's always going to be that way. So we can certainly dip into that another time, but for right now, the piece that we're dealing with is the hypocrisy.
I don't agree. It's always going to be that way. It has to change.
It cannot. For every 10 people, there is always going to be that one person that is going to be the leader, and people will follow.
Yeah, but now the Republicans, well, they're leading things. They don't have to lead anymore.
Yeah,
I don't understand what you mean.
Which means that those 1 out of 10, if they have less voting power, which means that Republicans would drop in popularity, which means they wouldn't be in power anymore.
No, you're looking at the statistic that he's saying all wrong. What he's saying is out of 10 people, if you put 10 people in the room, you're going to have at least one of them who is going to be charismatic enough, regardless of their factual base of whatever claim they make. They're going to be charismatic enough to pull people out of the remaining 9 and encourage them, convince them to follow them. My son has the ability to walk into a room of kids and convince them to follow him into a game or an activity or whatever, to do things for him. He doesn't abuse that power, thankfully, but he does have that ability. And there's always going to be that person that can do that.
But you're quite right. If children do think like that, but normally people who can think for themselves can see through that, and that's exactly what I want.
You're assuming.
Right, hold it,
running on a basis where people are going to always be rational. People are emotional, dude. They let their emotions rule them,
and that's okay.
They see people of skin color, people of a certain demographic,
and we're not
the person they voted for. They're emotionally invested in.
We can't learn to think for ourselves. It's not possible.
Gentlemen. Way off topic. Way off.
Actually, it comes right back to it. It comes right back to it because you've got Ted Cruz with the porn, right? And you're going to have people that are going to believe what he said about it not being him, that it was somebody on his staff, because those people are going to be emotionally involved in Ted Cruz as a supporter of Ted Cruz. So Ted Cruz can say, it was my next door neighbor, and they will believe him. He could say it was my dog, Fluffy. Now, I don't know if he has a dog and if its name is Fluffy, but he could make that claim, and Ted Cruz supporters would believe him, and that's rather than go and look to see if he has a dog, and let alone is its name Fluffy, which, you could find out in seconds just by pulling up that wonderful, wonderful repository of the sum of human knowledge that is indexed and searchable and accessible almost anywhere in the world, called Google. So you have this emotional investment in Ted Cruz, as well as any other politician, and they'll make the claim whatever they want. The reason why I was saying earlier in the show, that it might actually be true that it was somebody that had access to account is because in my personal experiences in the IT world, okay, and there are documented cases of this that coincide with my personal experience, where a superior has given a inferior or somebody just rung under them access to passwords and account information, regardless of personal or business, and has instructed them to take certain actions, whether it be to update an address or an account information, whether to subscribe to a particular post or things like that. And Shujin's nodding his head because he's probably witnessed that before too. There is documented cases of this stuff happening all the time. Sometimes people get in trouble for it, sometimes not. So is it feasible? Is there is there a chance that somebody working for Ted Cruz had access to his personal Twitter account Well, sure. Seeing how Ted Cruz treats people and everything else, I wouldn't be surprised if he handed his phone, it was unlocked, and he told him, "Here, listen, do this. Just check mark a couple of these Twitter accounts and have a day at it," or something to that effect. And the person doing it got a little carried away or had fun.
Yep.
But as for the whole porn thing, do I think Ted Cruz likes that particular type of porn or looks at porn? I would not be surprised with the amount of Christians who adamantly go against pornography, who adamantly go against masturbation, sexual gratification of any sort, and then they get caught, with the stuff they advocate against, like when you have priests who say homosexuality is wrong, and then they get caught with that 23-year-old in the bathroom, in the men's bathroom, or the one who say porn is wrong, and then they get caught with that big stash of porn, whether it's digital or physical or otherwise. So it wouldn't surprise me if Ted Cruz looked at porn. It wouldn't surprise me if he got himself off to it. That wouldn't surprise me in the least at this point in society. But is it feasible that somebody on his staff liked a porn tweet? Sure.
Yeah, but see, here's the problem. We've got so many examples where some person in power has gone ahead and said, this social behavior is wrong. Doesn't matter what it is. This social behavior is wrong. For instance, let's go with a nice simple one. Homosexuality is wrong. And then they eventually and almost inevitably get caught sitting with a very, very, very wide stance as they're sitting on the toilet in a public location that is known ways of soliciting for an encounter. Now, am I saying that this is something that Ted Cruz does? No, not by a long shot. Would I want to even entertain that idea? No, I really wouldn't, any more than I would for myself. But
yeah, because every time I see Ted Cruz, I'm reminded of an Eddie Munster.
If I ever find out that Ted Cruz took tap dancing lessons, I'm quitting the internet.
Here's the point, though. I'm going to take us back to, I believe it was Aesop's Fables. I could be wrong on this one, but Chris, I did hear you pop in because you've got that clicky USB port there again. I'll greet him in just a second. Before I completely forget it, I believe it was Aesop's Fables, the boy who cried wolf. There's only so many times you can go ahead and say, "Wasn't me, boss," before we're not going to believe you until you really go ahead and say, "It wasn't me, boss, and I can prove it," and then you prove it. Because only so many times, fool me twice, well, and as I was saying, getting us over this morning, good morning, Chris. Nice of you to join us.
Oh, thank you, Shujin. Good to be here, if somewhat late.
Yeah, and like I said, you've got the USB clicky going on again for yourself.
Have I? Is it popping again?
Mm-hmm.
It is.
Yeah, it sounds like you're tapping the microphone.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
And given what we just talked about tapping just recently,
yeah. But at least this is a technical issue we know about.
yeah, this isn't a form of communication that we're subtly
Let's
trying
just
to
say
joke about.
it's a good thing we can see the video because now we know what you're not doing.
Thanks. All right, so here's the deal. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Leaving the whole W thing aside for that whole thing, this is an expression that we've heard since at least the 60s, because I remember it from the old Star Trek series. But it still rings true on this one. You want to go ahead and you want to claim, it wasn't me. Well, there is a thing where, there's only so many times people can use that where you're going to go, yeah, sure, right. No, I don't believe you. And why? Because there tends to be this connection, whether it's right or wrong, but there seems to be a connection between people in authority who go ahead and legislate morality. Hint, hint, you can't do that because it doesn't work, really. And then completely go against that. Like I was making reference to, I forget who he was, but he was somebody who legislated against homosexuality, homosexual behavior for one reason or another. And then they were caught trying to solicit, or at least that was the charge. I forget how that turned out, but that made headlines. There are people who legislated against drugs. And, well, look at that. They got caught sniffing whatever. And this is another one of those situations where we've got somebody who's just gone ahead and said, you know, it wasn't me, for something that's otherwise relatively innocuous. Really? I mean, whatever. But there's a piece about this that I'm kind of wanting to get in there. And Chris, that's even worse at this point.
Is that even worse? Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Have another go.
Okay. See, that's the beautiful part about these computers these days. You got plenty of holes to plug things into. Well, I was going to say you got plenty of holes to plug things into these days. Anyway.
You're making a porn reference. Got it.
I was going to say everything's going to be a porn reference tonight.
Could be. I mean, it's not like I'm talking about input-output ports.
Or a lot of RAM.
Okay, so it's still doing it. That's weird.
Right, okay. Is it bearable or is it really annoying?
What happens if you hit mute? Do we still hear it if you hit mute?
That's a no.
All right. So when he's not talking, just hit mute.
Yeah, I will hit mute.
Yeah. And just for the record, I'm not going to be expecting you to try to clean that out in post. Don't worry about it.
www.gofundme.com/get Chris a new computer.
Or a new microphone.
Something like that. So anyway, so here's the piece. There is a thing, and this is not going to sound like it really makes much sense that it's not related. Trust me a second, it will. The furry community, I know, like I said, it's not going to seem like it makes any kind of sense. Follow me on this a second.
We're waiting.
The furry community has been much maligned over the last, let's call it 15 years, for having this public image of being sexual deviants and who only knows what's going on, regardless of the fact that the idea of having sex in a fursuit would be tantamount to putting on a lazy boy recliner and trying to hump somebody while they're dressed inside of the damn thing.
Well, CSI gave us mental images, thanks.
CSI, MTV, Vanity Fair, on and on and on and on.
Yeah, just about every hack journalist who thinks he's hot shit coming to Anthrocon.
Yeah, exactly. So here's where it's the link together is. The furry community basically locked themselves away from the vast majority of interviews and such because of that. Because there was already this preconceived notion, so they were all looking for that angle and looking to exploit it all over again. Versus the 70s, when the sci-fi communities were having their cons, and somebody came out and said, well, you guys will get dressed up in your weird costumes and whatnot. I mean, is there any kind of freaky thing going on with it?
Nope.
And do you remember what the geek community, the nerd community, the sci-fi community said when these came up? Yeah, and they owned it. They said, yeah, there's stuff going on, and whose business is it of yours? Don't you get dressed up? Doesn't your significant other wear something that you like? Maybe it's a cologne or a scent. Maybe it's a socks or stockings. Maybe it's a complete fetish outfit. And let's face it, every once in a while, those French nurse outfits just fly off the shelves. Right, Bridget? Bridget has no idea that I was going to go ahead and do that. Wow, I was not expecting that one. All right.
My costume store has a sexy space officer uniform because I can't say Star Trek or anything like that.
Of course. But I mean, let's face it. Humans are visual for the most part. And sexual gratification comes from whatever gets you going. Sometimes it's the written word. Sometimes it's images. Sometimes it's tactile. Sometimes it's olfactory. Sometimes it's auditory.
Sometimes it's a toaster. Don't judge me.
What you do when you're in the shower is your business entirely. I don't want to have anything to do with that.
It tingles when I plug it into the electric socket.
The important part of the whole damn thing is, why not just own it? It's video. It's sexually gratifying. It's titillating in some cases, but it's human nature to want to enjoy and to feel good. And sex is pleasurable, regardless of what you have to say about it, for the very most part. Unless, of course, you have to be in Japan, in which case you're probably doing it just right. And let me know what that website is so I can put that into my collection. Just own it. And what is wrong with that part? See, that's the problem. That's the hypocrisy. Own that and let everybody else own theirs too. That's the problem, isn't it?
Well, and that's the politician's conundrum. Every politician paints themselves into a corner. Moralistically, economically, politically, religiously, this is, excuse me, and this is what Trump has done too. And again, I'm not trying to make this about Trump, but I'm saying every politician, they pander to their base, or they pander to the people who have the power to vote them in. So Cruz's base, or Cruz's people that he pandered to, were the people that wanted no masturbation, who wanted stance against pornography, who wanted that religious-based, high moral standing where you could, be what they called a decent human being. And he had to stand for that as an icon of that morality so that he could get the votes. He's like an old school YouTube type person. He's just looking for damn clicks. In this case, damn votes, because damn votes give him that money. And the trouble is there's now it's the expectation, because you've put it out there publicly that you stand for this, you can never waver, because then you're a flip-flopper. And look what that did to John Kerry back in the day. Here's a guy who may have possibly changed his opinion due to incoming new evidence, as any good person should. But no, he's a flip-flopper. He's a flip because you can't anchor yourself to him because he's constantly changing direction. And that's what people look for. I mean, more rational people, guys like us, who, that relative few of us who have so-called seen the light, forgive me for using that term, I would be more inclined to vote for a person who flip-flops, because that means they're
mind.
Well, but not only that,
they
but
flip-flop for the right reason.
Well,
it's not flip-flopping.
I know, but I'm trying to
Americans
Joseph, I'm trying to use a layman's term here.
Joseph, in America, Americans as a whole, when they see opinions being changed, regardless of the reason,
they
tend not to use logic or rationality. They call it flip-flopping.
Yeah.
The part about that annoys me is that you seem to think that that's acceptable and that it's always going to be that.
Oh, I don't think it's acceptable.
No,
unfortunately, there's enough of the population
for
that does
2,000
not
years.
get a better education.
Can you stop talking over me, please?
Yeah, the both of you. I'm going to tell you both. Wrap it in on yourself and check and see, please, because this whole time you guys have been railing right over each other. And
no, I get cut off, and then
yes, I understand that. I understand that.
Okay,
but I'm telling all of us, be mindful, and appreciate it. Now that we've got that to go ahead and just screw us both over, and both meaning all of you collectively. I'm using the royal we right now. let's leave the politics aside for a second, because the politics on this are inevitably and inextricably linked together with the friggin' religion. Because we haven't touched yet, and I feel dirty having used that expression without even realizing what I said, the Catholic Church and the possibility of a pedophilia charge on a diplomat that was simply allowed to just walk. I don't know who I feel more pissed off about. The fact that a diplomat was simply allowed to walk away from a potential diplomatic incident, charges of, let's face it, child pornography, or the fact that they're going basically back to a safe haven, and what's going to have happen? Probably going to be under house arrest, which means they're going to be allowed to walk the grounds of Vatican City and, well, nothing. They just live out their life in the sunshine most of the time in a place where they can actually get McDonald's. Instead of, I don't know, maybe, living in a 8x8 cell for the rest of whatever. But that's just me.
All right, so the United States Department had claimed that a high-profile priest who was working with the Vatican's embassy in Washington, D.C. had violated federal law by possessing child pornography. So there's no claim that they actually physically engaged with the child, just that they had possession of child pornography itself. Now, granted, that's not excusing it. I'm just making sure we're getting the details right in this case.
Right. Now, The thing that is, it was possible, and the investigation was continuing on into it, possibly to be implicated. But they just walked.
They didn't just walk. The Vatican used the diplomatic community to protect the person's this particular priest's name. So there's no public documentation of who this priest is. So that means that the priest could show up again somewhere else that maybe the laws are not enforced as heavily and actually take advantage of children. And nobody would be the wiser because they don't know.
Yeah, and that's part of the problem. Chris, you've got your, I can hear your microphone is on, so I'm assuming that there's something that you wanted to put for this at this point.
Yeah, apologies to everyone. I am on there. It looks like it's going to be time for me to invest in a new microphone. But what I was going to say is, looking briefly through media coverage of this, it looks like as this person had some diplomatic status, they couldn't be prosecuted in the US for the offences. How accurate that is and what the more detail on that is, I don't know. But whether or not, but it's brings into question how you handle diplomats and other people in positions like this that have committed offences that have nothing to do with their job. And there's no grounds related to their job for excusing that conduct on there. So it looks like, unfortunately, the US have had to let them walk.
Now, to make sure that we're all on board on this, and I know I've kind of harped on this on several occasions before, but I want to go ahead and I want to do it again to make sure that we understand the nuance that kind of goes along with this one. And Chris, for the moment, if you don't mind muting out for the moment, there's a large difference between pedophilia, which is an urge, versus child fucking. Okay? I want to make sure that we're on that we understand that there is a difference between those two terms, and it is very, very different. And they are it is very important to remember that we're talking about the right pieces. There is nothing wrong with having an urge. It's okay to want to do various things that are otherwise possibly immoral, possibly illegal. I can think of about 3 of them just off the top of my head. 7. The point of it is, what you do is the important part. That being the case, we're talking about child rape. To the best of what we have to know at this point with this story, that didn't happen. To the best of our knowledge. So it is not nearly as heinous as it could be, although it is damned curious and not in any way condoned by any of us here on this show. And I'm pretty sure I speak for all of us on this one. So we have had, as I said earlier, we have had the boy who cried wolf. How many times have we heard of the Holy Roman See shuttling people around because they had kid fuckers in their grouping and they didn't bring them to any kind of justice? I can think of at least one major city. Bridget, you remember up in the northeast of the U.S., there's one diocese that had a whole bunch of money that went off to people because they were charged and they were convicted and they were paying out through the nose. Do you remember which city that might have been? Pick a city on the eastern seaboard. I'm pretty sure you can come up with one.
Pick a city on the eastern seaboard. Boston? I don't know.
Bingo.
Okay.
And they went ahead and they had to pay a whole bunch of money and didn't want to pay a whole bunch of money. So tried to find ways of shuttling that money around so that, oh, we don't have money anymore. Sorry. Yeah. Screwed people over every opportunity they could, physically and literally and economically and judicially. So when we've got a situation where there is a very good possibility that somebody may have been trafficking in kiddie porn and they get to walk home to an organization that is known, very well known, for shuttling kiddie fuckers around and not doing anything to them, and then shuttling them somewhere else in the world with no warning whatsoever. I don't know, folks. Do you find it curious? Do you think that maybe I'm just kind of blowing this one out of proportion?
No.
It's like I've said before, we've been hearing these stories for how long? And yet Catholicism still exists in America.
Yeah.
There are people who believe that we are a Christian nation despite our historical proof otherwise.
Well,
look what Aaron Raw went through down in Texas trying to make that review board who reviews school books before they go to the schools, saying, look, here's this problem with this book at such and such page, such and such paragraph, such and such line. It's making these claims that Moses influenced our Constitution or whatever it was really wacky stuff. And the board ignored him. The board ignored all the people who came in and talked about all the things that were historically wrong in the book.
Yeah.
And they just ignored them.
Yeah.
Chris, go ahead.
This text just touched on something that I've thing I've mentioned on past shows, and I know I've mentioned on other platforms, is one thing that organizations very often rail against this, but having an absence of consequences, an absence of oversight for any organization usually is not good. Look at, for example, the banking crisis in 2008. Look at the way major retailers and manufacturers' supply chains going across the third world involve all kinds of horrible shit, from dumping toxic waste all over the place to child labor and dangerous conditions. And they get away with saying that they have no oversight of their supply chain, which is crap because they bloody well should do. And this is happening with like the Catholic Church and other organizations. It is now readily apparent that the Catholic Church has no real will or intention to do anything about this problem or to take it seriously. And they're also that their members are not, while their membership is going down in the first world, on their members are not leaving en masse as you might hope. So until some external agency like secular governments actually step up and say, no, this is not acceptable, and if you want to operate within our countries, you're going to have to do X, Y, and Z to tackle this problem, and if not, we're going to come in and deal with it for you.
Yeah, and
we are going to lock people up, and we're going to take all your money.
And I can't see one government even trying to pull that because, again, it goes back to you'll get somebody, a very charismatic person, will start yelling and scream. You know, they're taking away our freedom. These guys are literally Hitler. You know, it'll all come out. And the majority non-rational, emotional, knee-jerk reaction people that are, sadly, the majority of the Western populace, no matter how much we'd like to think that we're above all this, I'd say those of us who are very much in the minority in this case. They would follow a person like that who would say that this would be an assault on their freedom, and they would swallow up whatever this loudmouth would have to say. So, I mean, yeah, it would be great, Chris, if we could see a government that would be willing to do that. Hell, I'd go into an election on that platform if I could. But I just know that it wouldn't gain any traction, especially in the southern United States. Yeah. Because going after one branch of Christianity, in this case Catholicism, which seems to have the worst reputation that I know of, they would see it as an attack on Christianity in general, and, you know, again, fire up the whole persecution complex because they're reacting emotionally, and the loudmouths would play, or they would exploit that emotional reaction.
Yeah. And to me, it's a very sad indictment of humanity that would gain more of an emotional reaction and an outcry than wide-scale sexual abuse of children has.
Yep.
Well, and also appreciate that, yeah, there probably is not at the moment any government that is going to have the political will would desire to do this, because, like you say, the fallouts would be massive. And I'd also be suggesting not picking on the Catholic Church specifically, because while they're in the public eye for doing this, and one of the largest religious organizations out there, so, but they are far from the only ones that have serious problems.
Yeah,
true. Yeah, true. But, hold on a second. Was trying to get him before.
Sorry.
Yeah, all I would take to overcome this emotional reaction and no rationality trend is just, education reform and one generation. I mean, we all have the capacity to be rational. It's just not a tradition.
I agree. And that is the sad state that education is, I want to say, secondary for a lot of people in terms of how best to, I don't want to say how best to run a country, but how best to live.
Yeah, you know what? There's a real stark way that we can point this one out. And Bridget, here you go. You go ahead and you have health education for women. The education's there, it's paid for, and things go well. Perfect example, of course, is things like Planned Parenthood in the U.S. What happens to sexually transmitted disease cases and teenage pregnancy when that's there, available, funded, and well done?
They go down.
And when they're curtailed?
Come back up.
Teenage pregnancy, sexually transmitted diseases, things that are otherwise a detriment to society and for the younger upcoming generations. So let's kind of point that out. Who tends to be the biggest, I guess, complainers about groups like Planned Parenthood, who give sexual information for people who are, let's see, people?
Remember, their biggest complaint against Planned Parenthood is the fact that Planned Parenthood performs abortions, regardless of the fact that less than 3% of the work that Planned Parenthood did involved abortions, that not all Planned Parenthood locations actually performed abortions. It was an appeal to people's religions and emotional responses. Like Joe said, we need to reform our educational process to encourage rational thinking and overruling that emotional drive. But we have so many politicians in the way of these things. And they're being voted into office by the people who we're trying to help, and they're just shooting themselves in the foot. There are days I just want to go out, spend all my paycheck, buy a whole bunch of guns and bullets, and say, "Look, if you're going to vote for that candidate, here, let me help you. Here's a gun. There's a bullet in there. Go ahead, point it at your foot, and pull the trigger. It'll be more effective."
One of the biggest arguments that I've heard since the election, and it's not one I've necessarily agreed with, and I've stayed away from it because I'll put it this way: I'm too old to get into shitstorms, especially online these days. This show's great. I'd love to meet people who are fans of the show. Make no mistake, but there are just some battles I don't want to fight in. I'd just as sooner sit on the sideline and eat popcorn and watch the heavyweights kick each other. But lately, there's been a real push, or a lot of rhetoric since the election, about popular versus electoral college. And when you start hearing that, like what Tech just said, about people who, despite the fact that voting this particular person in is going to be detrimental to their health, they keep doing it anyway because of emotional response. I'm almost starting to think that this whole popular vote thing might not be such a bad idea, because it seems a lot of people who do vote are voting are voting for the sake of voting and not necessarily voting based on any kind of educational reason or information. That's sort of, they're voting whilst uninformed.
Yeah. Can I?
Yeah, do
something I think links the two topics here. Electoral systems around the world are often have got a lot of problems. I think the electoral college system here, where in many states, is my understanding that the Electoral College is not really under any obligation to follow the popular vote.
No.
And or can in circumstances vote against it on there, and what it is doing is lessening democracy. It is putting a barrier between the people expressing their wishes about their government. On there, and I understand that historically there's been reasons for it, but again, in the UK we've been discussing our system because we've currently got a first past the post system, which again is not perfect because it often leads with the makeup of Parliament not representing the distribution of votes cast on there. There are other systems like proportional representation systems being proposed that would that have some possibility of evening that out and making it and solving some of the problems. But there's no system that doesn't have its problems. And one of the things we're also seeing here is recent studies have come out that in the UK, the Church of England only has something like 900,000 adherents. It's particularly among the young, it's like less than 3%. Yet they have received massive government funding, have massive representation in our second chamber of Parliament. On there, they're getting massive funding for running schools, and this is not representative of the views of the population.
Yeah. There's as an aside, by the way, as far as the Electoral College system, it's got its problems. I'd be more than happy to go through a whole bunch of different pieces, but as far as to can those representatives vote against what's in place? Yes, but they don't have to accept that person's vote, and if they continue to say, I'm going to vote against, they can simply be replaced to someone who will vote. So, yeah, you could not vote, but it's kind of
on a
worthless in some cases.
I had a blog post that actually cited the number of times that the Electoral College had gone against the so-called popular vote in the past couple of centuries. Sadly, I lost that blog post when I had to reformat my site, but it was less than 10 times in, I'm tempted to say since the college's inception, that it has gone against the popular vote, 2016 being, of course, the most recent. But I did a little bit more digging on this, and I saw that yes, if you were to combine all the numbers of people, like all the votes themselves, and just counted them as the votes, then yes, the Democrats had more. But if you break it down into each area where the college has influence, the districts, for lack of a better term, the red states won more of those districts individually. So that's, well, like I thought it, like yeah, we can get into all of that and everything, that's fine, but the bottom line is that there was no cheating or whatever. Cries for do-over that I've been hearing sometimes, stop.
Yeah,
you've spent a year, sorry Shujin, but the left has spent the past year doing nothing but whinging about do-overs, Russia, and a whole bunch of other things. I've heard nothing from the other side about 2018. The chance to take some of the seats in Congress and the Senate. I've harped on this before. Like, where's your guys' battle plans? Or is it all just now Facebook whining, YouTube posting, poorly made videos, I might add? All of this stuff is not getting anything done. And the last I heard, the new leader of the DNC is a complete cornflake. Like I've heard his name once, and I had to get it from somebody on Facebook because I'm not seeing any media push for this guy, even though the left is supposedly controlling the media. Well, then why are you not getting the guy's face out there saying he's going to make a difference? Like, if you want change, go out and get it, because no one else is going to do it for you.
I see where you're coming from, and yeah, this is not exactly per se to the topic,
No.
but there is a piece about this that kind of plays into it. People end up doing stuff that is against their better success. I'm saying this poorly. I'm trying to figure it out.
Against the best interest, maybe?
Against the best interest, yes. And don't worry, Chris. I'm gonna get you really quickly in a second to get that damn microphone out. But the problem is that, as has been said, I guess maybe I can just defer over to what who was it that said it over in the chat? It was Stephanie who said it. But rational thinking takes effort. That's true, and that's the problem. And we need to have people doing that. We started a little bit late, so I'm starting to see about wrapping this a little bit late at this point. We've still got a couple of moments, so we're not really pressed for time for pieces. But as usual, I want to get all you guys for whatever last piece. Chris, I'm going to start off with you, since you were waiting patiently, and I know it. Whenever your mic wants to go back on again now.
Sorry. Sorry, what did you... sorry, I was momentarily distracted, Shujin.
He's too busy looking at his public Twitter account.
Yes. Well, as far as to, however we want to end up closing the idea of all of this, how this hypocrisy is working or not working for people or groups or whatever at this point.
On this, yeah, not approving of hypocrisy in general. Regarding the whole Cruz's specific hypocrisy and more generally the hypocrisy around sex and pornography, this I think has far-reaching consequences, much wider than Ted Cruz, in that what the public face people feel obliged to put up is very different from what they do in private. And there are so many issues regarding like shame and guilt, and politicians and other people in the public eye being hounded for, in this case, nothing that should have anything to do with anyone else, as long as what they're doing is legal and ethical. Then I don't see that in a rational world, no one else should really give a shit about it on there. And I think the only way that we can challenge this effectively is to be examples of being open and being honest and not being hypocrites, and giving other people around us an example that it's okay to talk about these issues. You don't have to do a knee-jerk embarrassment and denial reaction at the moment anyone finds out anything about your personal life or your sexual preferences or your porn habits or whatever else it is, because none of this shit matters. And it's the amount of stigma, almost all of it coming from religion, is really bad, because it means people can't discuss these important human issues honestly or openly.
It's not bad. Joseph, I'll give you your chance over here at this point.
To chime in on...
well, whatever last items that you'd like to drop for this, so.
Yeah. Well, you know, I sound like a broken record at this point, but I really think it comes down to people using their innate ability to think for themselves. You know, either the entire point of our education, well, an education, normally it's to inform us about our environment so that we can better survive in it. But the tradition seems to be, and education as well, is, well, training. It's training us to rely on others to do it for us, to decide what's best for us, what's good for our survival or not, or community as a, or humanity as a whole. We should really take back that decision process instead of mindlessly leaving it to others, because, you know, they're going to abuse it, as we can see now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and truth be told, just so you know, for future, I don't see any problem with you being a quote unquote broken record for that. There is nothing wrong with reminding people, you know, get your freaking education, learn through stuff. I mean, that, seriously, don't ever. You remember how all the times that you used to tell me, you know, to stop poo-pooing, you know, however many people may be paying attention to us or whatnot. I'm going to tell you the same damn thing. I don't care how many times you want to say that. There's nothing wrong with that message. It's a good message. Don't worry about it. Don't apologize for it.
Thank you, sir. I know that repetition is annoying, though, sometimes. You know, for people to get the message, that's the thing with this podcast, because, you know, we could just come across somebody who's like listening for the first time, and yeah, that's okay. But if you've got regular users and who always hear me repeat the same thing on every show, that can get annoying.
You know what? I'm going to prove you wrong, because Dalan, I'm going to start... No, actually, Bridget, I'm going to start you on this one. And I'm going to fire you off and tell you, here's your topic to really quickly. What do we keep telling people to do every time there's an election cycle coming up?
Go out and vote.
And how many times have we told people that?
Over and over again. I know that I have harped on it, and yeah, people need to go out and vote. But I will have to say this, with these recent special elections where Democrats have taken some seats that were in strongly red states, this makes me feel more hopeful about 2018, that maybe people will actually show up and vote.
Now, as far as to the overall topic, what would you like to leave off with?
This may make me a bad person, but every time one of these quote-unquote family values politicians get busted with, you know, hookers and drugs and stuff like that, yeah, I'll admit that I do engage in a little schadenfreude.
Hopefully with some whipped cream and a cherry on top. That's the best way to have it.
I mean, it's funny. And they're like, but Bill Clinton. And I'm like, but he never ran on quote unquote family values.
Didn't he kind of start with that, saying he was going to be the family values president? I'm not trying to debunk here, but I just seem to recall hearing something about that. Let's face it, it went off of him like water off a duck's back anyway.
I know, but I mean, Democrats have never run on the platform of being family values. The GOP, that's their shtick.
Fair point.
And a lot of times it's GOP, you know, the ones that are most pro-family values that get busted. It's funny how that works out, but it's true.
Yeah. Tech, what do you want to do on that? Let the record show that he has done the soft core face palm, squeezing the bridge of his nose.
And the beard stroke for knowledge. We have a serious problem in our country. Education. We have the guise of education reform, and we have some legitimate education reform. But we don't have enough. And we won't have enough until we're able to convince the people to pay into the system to make it happen. We have people who have the mental process of, why should I have to pay taxes on schools? I don't have any kids. Why should I have to pay more taxes to get better teachers for kids I don't have? Of course, you also have parents who say, I don't need to pay more taxes. My kids are getting an education good enough, or my kids don't need an education. They're going to take over what I do, and you don't need to be that smart, which just goes to show the dumbness of the state, the idiocy of the statement to begin with. But here's the thing. The better educated our children are, regardless of whether it's the person's kids down the street or whether it's your own, the better decisions they make later on in life. And this is early on in life, too. But then you have things that we do that, well, let's put it this way. We have religion. Religion gets its hooks in early and says, you will do what we want you to do, or you're a bad person. If you're a bad person, you're going to be punished and burned in hell and all that other crap and bullshit. I don't like religion. I don't think religion should be around. I definitely don't think religious people should hold office. These are my thoughts. These are not the laws. And why I still respect a person's right to choose. I do not have to respect the religion itself. When Mitt Romney ran for office and I heard he was a Mormon, there is nothing he could have said that would have made me vote for him. Because the Mormon church can hold over your head. They're supposedly how it works is they can tell you to do something. If you don't do it, you're out. You're done. You're going to hell. But so technically, the head of the Mormon church could have told Mitt Romney, had he gotten in office, you need to launch a nuclear rocket or you're going to hell. And then he would have had to weigh those. It's like, I'm sorry, if that, to have somebody who could potentially be put into that situation, regardless of whether Mitt Romney would ever do something like that. I'm not saying he's the type of person who would do that. I don't know the guy. But the fact that that situation could potentially arise, yeah, I'm not going to vote that into office. Not a chance. Ever. That's why we need scientists, and we need mathematicians, and we need all these STEM people who actually know their fields, who have, who are very good at what they do, also running for political offices. I know they don't want them, but they would be good for them. And they would be good for the country and for the children and the adults and everybody. And when our country prospers, it's been demonstrated that other countries prosper because we integrate so much with the outside world. Just like when crap or shit hits the fan here in the States, it tends to have a, what's it called? Splash damage?
That's one way of putting it.
Exactly. We need more education, less religion. More rational thought, less emotional knee-jerk responses. Fine, you don't like abortion? Don't get one. Don't punish somebody else just because they got raped by a family member and they had no control over it because they were, I don't know, 10 years old.
Okay. Dalan, you get your big opportunity.
With regards to Ted Cruz, like I said, I think he painted himself into a corner. He took a stand. He took a moral stand that was either most likely against who he was as a character, or who he was as a person, and now he's gotten caught for it. And now something as innocuous as liking a site or liking a porn video, which most of us, I would say, have done at least once on a personal Twitter account. The trouble is with him, because he took that moral stand and because he's a public figure, he's under a microscope, a very powerful microscope, where every part of his daily life, the public expects it to be in line with what he has publicly gone out and stated as his core beliefs or his core moral standing. And I guess no politician should ever run on a moral stance. That should never be a question that should be asked. If I was running for office and CNN came up to me and said, "What's your stance on abortion?" I'd say, my stance on abortion is none of your goddamn business. My stance on homosexuality, none of your goddamn business, because that is not my job. My job is not to tell you how to live. My job is to make sure that there are laws in place to keep you safe from criminals, that there is adequate funding for healthcare so that if you're sick, you can get better, and to make sure that our roads and our infrastructure are maintained properly. Past that, I should not have a say in anything else. I should not have a say on how you live your life when you close that door, so long as you're obeying the law. If you're in love with someone of the same sex or gender as you, fine. The fact that I might like a porn video, again, it's none of your damn business. A politician should never, ever take a stand on any kind of moral ground, because there's always the chance that they won't be able to live up to it. We're human. We're fallible. It's what we are. As far as the Vatican, that whole thing goes, I think we've beaten to death our disdain for the hypocrisy of the Catholic Church and in Christianity in general. Not much more I can say about that. One thing I do want to touch, though. I said that badly. Joseph, talking about repetition. Not to put a too humorous a spin on it, but isn't that kind of how churches indoctrinate people, through repetition? So you're kind of doing the same thing, but in a good way? So keep doing it. Keep beating us over the head with it so that we all learn.
Well, there's a difference that, what I'm putting out there, well, you can test it for yourself. Whereas what the religion is putting out is untestable, undemonstrable, and indemonstrable. And
yeah, exactly.
They're actually keeping you from learning how to survive for yourself.
But see, you're saying, think for yourself, think for yourself, think for yourself. So finally, we will start thinking for ourselves and go, hey,
and you won't need me anymore.
Well, no, because then everybody will turn and bow to you, because you are the person that told us to think for ourselves.
That's not thinking for yourself. What the
I know.
My goal is to be useless.
It's like the believer that comes up to the atheist and says, "Hey, look, you took away my religion. What have you got to replace it with?"
But you just
logic.
Okay, that's a whole other thing. But that's exactly it.
Yeah,
because
I know.
That's we talk about eliminating religion. Honestly, I think that's a bad idea as long as we don't have something to replace it with.
Thank you. You're right. I agree.
They're holding us hostage, basically.
Yeah, to answer that question of I offer you nothing in exchange, not the smartest thing to say to a person that you just yanked out of a religion.
Yeah. And
just saying.
Like, we can go back through history. It's not only religion. Like, look at the hippie generation. You know, they rejected all of the quote-unquote authority of the time. But they didn't replace it with anything. And what happened? Well, they fell back to the traditional conformist. They became like even conservatives past hippies.
Yeah, it's a lot of what you see.
That could have been great, but it imploded.
Yeah, but even in today's political climate, there's a lot of, you know, you got the extreme left, you got the extreme right. They want to rip it all down, tear it apart, but what are they going to replace it with? Has anyone ever asked?
It's funny, with rational thought, there's no more concept of left and right and all that. All that's clan-minded groupthink. And that's exactly what we want to eliminate. Like, yeah, we're at the end of the show, so I won't get into it. But
well, you know, are you left wing or right wing? I'm both, because you need both to fly, damn it.
Well,
yeah. I'd like to disagree with you there, because that's kind of my job.
What would I do without you?
Let me get my popcorn.
For both, I would say moderate, liberal or conservative, you know, or left and right wing positions, it's possible to arrive at both through rational thought. On there, depending, it does in many ways depend on your starting point. I take your point regarding the extreme ends of those both positions, but I think on there it's perfectly possible for rational people to disagree regarding courses of like political action, like economic policy, defense policy, education, whatever, and that's fine, and so as it should be. If these disagreements are done in an honest and respectful manner, which unfortunately they very often aren't.
So let me go ahead and get us done. Yeah. There's a piece about this that has been stated and intimated, and it comes down to a very simple concept. We are societally, as far as even at a species level, what we are. We're human. Specifically going ahead and telling people that they should not act human, that's a losing proposition every time. It will be every time. There's no two ways about it. So going ahead and telling people that you go ahead and you do this, which is what you're going to do because, you know, you can, because, well, that's the way that people are. That's dumb. I mean, that's just stupid. And I'm talking about, of course, from the sexual point of view. People will do what they do because that's what they do. People will masturbate because it feels good. And anybody that tries to tell you otherwise is doing it wrong.
Hell yeah.
Or maybe in some cases, that's what they enjoy. Now, I'm not going to get into that because that's not what we're talking about tonight. Although we will end up talking about that some night. I want to have a discussion about that. About sex. But that's not what we're talking about this time. We're talking about using that as a bludgeon. Telling people, you're going to behave this particular way, and we know that you're going to because everybody does. Well, I think that's wrong, and I'm going to go ahead and put into place, you're going to be punished for doing something that we know that you're going to do because that's what we do. Why? See, there's the problem. There's the problem right there. You put it into place because it makes everybody else a bad person, but you've done it to your own damn self. We've seen it time and again. How many churches have had charges brought down on them for money laundering or tax evasion, even though they've said, be good people and give what you're supposed to, and then they don't? You want to be a hypocrite, do it in the terms of what you tell your kids, how you teach them. Don't do pot. Didn't you do pot? We're not talking about me. Okay, that's not cool, but at least you're not influencing and criminalizing and disenfranchising entire swaths of population. It's not good, but it's not heinous. If you've got a track record of doing this, that's not good. In and of itself, it's not heinous, but it's not good. The Republican Party here in my country has a bad track record, a really bad track record of dealing against populations and then finding out that they are actually part of that population. We know full well that the Catholic Church has been shown to house people who are child fuckers, denounce it publicly, and then just shoo it under the rug and move it somewhere else, time and again. People, we told you. Think for your goddamn selves. And what's the answer to what Dalan posed before? What have you got to replace it with? A life away from everyone else telling you how to live your life. The opportunity to live your life the way that you choose to. Choose. That's scary. But you know what? That's the world we live in. You should be choosing. Because that's what a responsible person does. As always, thank you all for being part of our show tonight. We hope that you've enjoyed all of what we've had to say and found something worthwhile in all of our opinions and positions. As always, let me thank everybody for being with us tonight. Chris, I'm going to hit you first because you came in last. Glad you were able to make it, man. And you have yourself fun trying to figure out what your next headset's going to be.
Yeah, I will do. I'm going to have a look into that over the next week. It's been great to be back, even if it's only for half a show.
Yeah, we appreciate it, man. Joseph, thank you for your time, and good luck with all those projects. For those that hadn't yet had the opportunity of seeing, there was one picture, I don't know if it was this week that you had posted it relatively early since the last show. It was a black and white picture from some building that looked like it was kind of triangular based. I loved that particular photo.
That was a patch of sunlight actually between two buildings. It's the first possibly the first photo ever taken.
Oh wow!
Oh,
Is a lovely picture.
Well, it's not part of my project, but it's one of my passions. But yeah, it was here in France, in the south. It was an exposure. It took 9 hours or something like that. So you've got the sunlight on both sides. You've got shadow from the building on the left and the shadow from the building on the right, and that's what makes the pie shape in the middle.
You see, I feel real bad now because I was actually admiring the architecture of the building. I completely missed the nuance. Now I have to go back and look again.
Yeah,
I feel bad now.
I think I linked to the Wikipedia article, so yeah, you'll get more than what you came for.
Excellent. I love that. But even so, with that out of the way, thank you for your time, man.
Oh,
really...
by the way, I just kind of a happy news. I was just at I'm working now with the Paris Association, which is called Alpage, and it's kind of a Parisian historical society. Oh, so wow. I'm now an active member.
Nice.
Very good.
Yeah.
Good luck on all that, man.
Yeah. Thank you.
Tech, of course, thank you very much for your time. You have yourself a good morning.
My brain hurts.
Well,
You have a good morning too.
you know, I was trying to figure out what the psychoplasma, whatever the hell that cat-born thing is. I was going to.
No, I'm like really, really tired. I hit the gym really late today after doing a whole lot of work this morning instead of vice versa. And it took a lot out. So I'm just.
No worries.
I'm ready for sleep.
You do that. Bridget, of course, thank you for your time. You have yourself a good sleep again, I'm sure.
Thanks.
And you just be real careful about that carpet shark climbing into bed again.
Yeah.
No, that's not a euphemism. Well, actually, it kind of is a euphemism. There's a story behind it. We'll tell you all about it later. I'm not going to tell you about it later.
There's always a story.
Dalan, thank you, of course, as always, and for all the stuff. And by the way, Trippin had gone ahead and just said just a couple of moments ago, first off, well, said thanks, Shujin, whatever is my thing, don't worry about it. I'm sorry I've been MIA. That's okay. And says, you spelled butt wrong, Trippin, you do know that. But catching downloads, so you've got a fan of your work.
Trippin, give me a couple hours tomorrow. I'll get the place caught up. I promise.
But seriously, man, thanks for all that you end up doing.
Hey, and thank you, Trippin, for actually utilizing some of that bandwidth.
Yeah, one of these days we'll try and figure out what the numbers on everything is. Maybe, I don't know. Figure it out. But in any case, thank you for the work that you do, and do your thing.
So what we're referring to here that Trippin is working on is our audio storage site, holycrapthevlogcast.com. And then, of course, myself, if I ever find myself inspired to scratch down some random thoughts, you can pick those up at inthewind.yo5.ca.
So, a couple of items really quickly before we get out of here. Thank you guys for being with us, as always. Hope that you had yourself a great time. I think I should do two quick things. One of which I'm going to record just before we close up the stream for Dalan. In case anybody kind of worries about it, and I'm not just talking about the guys here on the panel, but for all of you that might be listening, I was not angry earlier. I was not angry. I was not upset. I needed to just get my voice out there. I wanted everybody to know ahead of time because I've tried to tell everybody, I do not get upset with this stuff. I don't. It is not worth getting upset with because it's not something to be upset about. Every once in a while things happen and I just have to kind of raise up my voice a little bit to make sure that everybody hears me as opposed to, hitting the mute button on everybody in order to tell them, hey, listen to me, God damn it, because it's my show. So don't ever worry about it. Seriously. If there's truly a point where something's got me angry, it's going to be because somebody got hurt. That is a time where I'm going to be angry. Other than that, seriously, don't worry about it. I think we're all good enough friends over here that we understand that. So, don't ever worry about that for me. If I get angry, you'll know it. Trust me.
Oh, yeah.
And finally, on all of this, as far as the religious aspect of everything is concerned, like I said earlier, people have cried wolf many a time. One of the things that does to the populace not only makes them not willing to pay attention, but when it works the other way, when there's been a wolf a lot of times, we kind of catch on to that. And we kind of pay attention to that. If you think that there is a wolf in your midst, be a little bit more aggressive in checking it out. Remember, the life you save may be somebody's kid. Might be your own. So we'll be looking forward to catching you guys with us again next week. If you want to catch up all of the shows, as well as to hit up the audio, that's holycrapthevlogcast.com. If you'd like to leave us a voicemail message, and I'm kind of challenging the guys over there at Barroom Atheist because I called their voice line. Our line is 859-4288-554. That's 859-HCTV-554. And of course, all the follow me links are available over the website. We'd be looking to seeing you guys very soon. And thanks for believing in us a lot. As always, I wish you all the peace I no longer have. I wish you the strength that I've learned. I wish you well. And of course, my lady, over 12 years on, I am still in love. Matane Fujin. I love you and I miss you. Dream of me. Till the next time we get together, everyone, as always, good night. Now, as everybody knows, I did not close up the stream just yet. What I'd like you guys to do is to go ahead and mute your microphones. I'm going to record just a couple of seconds so that Dalan can drop it at the beginning of the episode to warn about to warn everybody about the clicking ahead of time. So, Dalan's just going to be a couple of seconds for you. In 3, 2. Everybody at Shujin, just wanted to let you know that when Chris comes in at about the 1 hour mark, there is going to be a slight difference, unfortunately, in the audio. It's something that we're not really going to be able to do anything about. It's something to do with his headset, and we're going to be seeing about having that changed up in the future. Please keep that in mind. And of course, as always, thanks for listening to the rest of the show. All right, so we'll drop that in. Hopefully, that'll be easy enough for you to just go ahead and drop in at the beginning before the episode and make it easy. I appreciate it, man. But for everybody, good night.